Welcome to The Simple Sophisticate, where in 2014, this podcast premiered. And now in its 11th season, the show continues to focus on the same principles it was founded upon: the art of living a life of quality over quantity. Topics range from creating an everyday life you love living, strengthening mindfulness practices, building a capsule wardrobe, preparing seasonally delicious meals, traveling and exploring France and Britain, and living life to the fullest without breaking the bank, because living well really is quite simple. I'm your host, Shannon Ables, and whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, en route, or returning from that dream destination, or sitting down with a hot cuppa or a cafe au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 402nd episode of The Simple Sophisticate. And boy, do I have an episode for you. I myself have been revamping and changing and having all sorts of ahas when I came into all of this information, and I could not wait to share it with you because it puts the knowledge that I've been seeking, and I have a feeling many of you have been seeking, puts it into my hands and tells me, okay, now it's your responsibility to do something with, but now you know, at least now you know. What the heck am I talking about? In today's episode, I'm going to share with you how to keep ourselves healthy, our mind and our body, for the rest of our lives, specifically for perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal, which is the rest of our lives. Inspired and drawing information from a woman who has been described as a forward-thinking international exercise physiologist and nutrition scientist who aims to revolutionize exercise, nutrition, and performance, especially for women, Dr. Stacy Sims, who hails from New Zealand. So a big shout out to all our Southern Hemisphere listeners who live in New Zealand, shares her knowledge about what's really going on and what women need to maintain optimal health and fitness, from how to exercise, as well as whether or not you need supplements, because she does detail them in this book, and what to eat and how much to eat. What I first was drawn to about Dr. Sims is how women's bodies, especially when they're going through perimenopause and menopause and postmenopause, are entirely different than how men's bodies function and respond to exercise, certain types of exercise, food, and whatnot. Now, this may seem obvious, but yet we've still been applying the same rules to fitness and eating, even though we say we know that our body is changing. So she enlightens us, so to speak, and I'm so grateful that she has. So that is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to share with you 17 habits, approaches, new ways of living, basically, in your life, if you aren't already doing them, which I have a feeling many of you are, but some you may not have known about. For example, for myself, the first one we're going to talk about today, I did not know about this. I've seen it done. I've seen people do it. It's not that I didn't know it existed, but I didn't know the benefits to my health for doing it. But before we get into all of that, this episode's Petit Plaisir is a British show that ties in to one of the topics we're going to talk about today. And I have thoroughly enjoyed this series, and I think you might as well if you haven't already started watching it. That will be shared at the end of today's episode. So let's dive right in to our topic for today: how to keep ourselves healthy, mind and body, for the rest of our lives, specifically for perimenopausal and beyond, but for all ages too. Let's begin with a quote from Dr. Stacy Sims, international exercise physiologist and nutrition scientist. Quote, "With the right training, nutrition, lifestyle strategies, and the power of the mind, women in their 50s and beyond can still accomplish amazing feats. Women prove every day that our best years can be ahead of us no matter how old we are now. We've accumulated hard-earned wisdom and power over the years. You're higher on the totem pole of life. There are countless opportunities that lie ahead." End quote. The beautiful gift of stepping into another year of life is that we have the opportunity, but not the promise, to enjoy the application of the wisdom that we have learned along the way thus far. As someone who lives with awareness and pays attention to the reality of life, we know that our bodies need to be taken care of properly so that they can take care of us. Knowing how our bodies change as we age is crucial to knowing how to give it the care it needs for optimal quality of living. Which brings me to a reality that Dr. Stacy T. Sims, an exercise physiologist and nutrition scientist, pointed out in a recent interview on the Mel Robbins podcast. The majority, and arguably supermajority, of all fitness studies and how the body responds to exercise for weight loss and strength building has been done with men as their test subjects. And the few studies that did involve women were women who were pre-menopausal age. In fact, she points out in her latest book, Next Level, Your Guide to Kicking Ass, Feeling Great, and Crushing Goals Through Menopause, that in 2019, there was a study published by the Mayo Clinic Proceedings, and it found, quote, that of 175 resident physicians in family medicine, internal medicine, and even gynecology who were surveyed, 20% received 0 lectures on menopause during their training. Fewer than 7% reported feeling prepared to help manage the care of women through their menopausal years, end quote. So just knowing that this needs to shift, that we need to educate and become more aware and actually ask the question when we're at our doctors or when we read or hear about a study that's purported on the news to say this is what happens and that's what happens. Say, okay, who did you study? Was it all men? If it was women, what age were they? That is so important. Just the critical thinking skill here that we talk about in just living a life of truth contentment is so vitally important for health purposes. Okay, so if that study says this, who did you study? Da, 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 da. All that fun stuff is very important to knowing whether or not the information is going to be helpful to us if we apply it to our lives. Now, thankfully, much awareness and discussion and knowledge about menopause, perimenopause, and postmenopausal years has been more readily shared by many high-profile individuals. We're talking Michelle Obama, Oprah, Naomi Watts has a new book out, Halle Berry, Katie Couric, Maria Shriver, and more. And I've linked to a few of those on the show notes. This is so important to destigmatize it, to teach us about it, to not be fearful of it. Knowledge is power. That dissipates the fear. What is most important is understanding what we can do and how it will benefit us, not only in the short term to alleviate symptoms and things like that, but also in the long term and for the rest of our lives. And as someone who has been active my entire life, I've been an athlete in my younger years, and now at the age of 46, I have begun to realize just in the last handful of years that even though I'm eating the same things for the most part, probably even better than before, exercising regularly, I'm not seeing the same results, and not in a good way. And that's been frustrating. And so, of course, I keep looking, I keep researching, I keep asking questions. And it's interesting to ask questions of different doctors. And I have to be honest, I just assumed that they knew. And so whatever they told me, I trusted. And now I realize I need to start asking, okay, what's your experience? What's your training in that? How do you know? Because a lot of the times it would just be a flat out hormone replacement. I'm like, whoa, let's talk about this a little bit more. And as we'll talk about a little bit in this conversation today, the book that Dr. Stacy Sims writes, she does talk about hormonal replacements and absolutely does a deep dive into all the research and benefits and things like that. But it's not what she leads with. And that's why I'm really appreciative of her book. She gives me the knowledge to choose and to try first what I can do physically in my fitness routine and my diet to help my body out and give it what it needs. I encourage you, first of all, to listen to Mel Robbins' recent podcast episode with Stacy Sims, Dr. Stacy Sims as her guest. That's the one that perked me up. I was like, whoa, thank you. And I have to send a huge thank you to a longtime reader and member of this community, the Simply Luxurious Life, Janet Meyer. Thank you so much for sharing that episode with me. Game changer doesn't seem a sufficient enough word to describe how it felt to hear and learn what she had to share, because it really did kind of just, oh, well, Shannon, here you go. Here are some specifics you can apply to your life right now. And here's why, knowing the why. And as they share at the end of the podcast episode, share this with someone you love. Share this with a friend. Share it with your sister. Share it with your mother. Share it with your aunt. Share it with your girlfriend. Share it with anyone you think would appreciate and benefit from it. And Janet shared with me, and I know she shared with many other people, and I want to share it with you if you haven't already listened to it, which I have a feeling many of you probably have, because there's so much that we can do to savor the rest of our lives in a most amazing way and not be bogged down by misinformation or by fear. We can eliminate both of those things and have so much more knowledge. So I provided a link to that podcast episode on the show notes, so you can check that out. And as I was listening, I cannot tell you how refreshing, validating, and inspiring that episode was. So again, I encourage you to check that out. But then I also encourage you, because then it inspired me to go pick up her books. So she has 2 books. She has one that she wrote a couple years ago, 3 years ago, I think, called Roar. And that book is for just all women of all ages. And she does touch on menopause and perimenopausal in a section. But the whole book is predominantly for women of all ages, just to understand how to work with your body and your cycles. And so that is available. But the one I dove into and devoured was the most recent one that just came out in 2024, Next Level, Your Guide to Kicking Ass, Feeling Great, and Crushing Goals Through Menopause and Beyond. Now, if you're not someone who is super athletic, like, wait a second, Shannon, I'm not someone who goes out and runs. I don't do CrossFit. I don't either. I walk all the time. I do 1 yoga class a week. I've never been someone who exhausts my body. It just wasn't fun for me. But I love being outside. I love working out in the sense of getting physical. And as you know, I said I was a trackster when I was in college, and competed at a high level. So I know what intense training is, and I never really liked it, but I also saw the results of it. So I have all that experience and knowledge. And so then I just found something that fit well for me. But now things are changing. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? Well, the good news is it's quality over quantity, and it's not as much as you might think. Regardless of what your fitness level is now, you can absolutely do these things. And I'm going to show you exactly what she shares in the book and encourage you to pick it up. All right. So with all that said, I have simultaneously been reading another book about memory. It's a book called, it just came out in 2022, I believe, The Complete Guide to Memory, The Science of Strengthening Your Mind by Dr. Richard Restak. And as I'm reading this book, and I'm reading Dr. Stacy Sims' book, I'm realizing that, and this won't surprise you, there is so much that we can do for our physical health that will also benefit our brain health and strong memory, because the book is entirely about preventing, to the best of our ability, dementia or Alzheimer's, and what we can do now at any age, no matter how young you are or how many years you have in your book of life, what we can do now to strengthen our memory, because it's all about having a strong memory. Because the one thing he did say at the beginning of the book is that memory is the key to brain enhancement. And he goes on to say that at the present time, there is no way of guaranteeing anyone that they will not eventually develop Alzheimer's. He shares, I have never encountered in my many years of neurological practice a patient with highly tuned memory skills who was suffering from Alzheimer's disease or any other degenerative brain disease. Put it another way, a poor memory doesn't necessarily imply dementia, but a well-functioning memory virtually eliminates a concurrent diagnosis of dementia. In other words, you have everything to gain by increasing your memory skills and nothing to lose. So right there is motivation enough to strengthen our memory, even though we maybe think it's perfectly fine right now. Okay, well, why is it fine? How does it function? What can I do to keep it strong and keep it working at its optimal level? So we're going to combine both of these books and experts so that we are living our most healthy life, both in body and mind. And I cannot wait to share with you this episode and this list of 17 ideas that hopefully will inspire you to pick up either one of these or both of these books, because they dive deeper into the science. I'm just the messenger. They are the experts. So I want to share a quote to kind of just remind us of what lies ahead in our life journey. It's a quote from one of my favorite drama series as of late. It's no longer running, but it was a quote that I heard it and I wrote it down. It was about Julia Child, and it said, "The climax of the story always occurs in the second act. It's the best part." And so, folks, If we're going to make it the best part, we have to do our part to take care of our body and mind. And we have the keys to do that. And so the other reason I wanted to share this episode with you is because the more we as women talk about and celebrate and model how to live amazingly through this inevitable change, we cannot not have this change. If we have the change, we're still alive and kicking. Woohoo! That's great news. By talking about it in a informative, inspiring, and determined way, we destigmatize what has been for centuries seen as a negative along the journey of womanhood, but no longer. We have that power to change with the words we use, how we talk about it, how we live our lives, the mindset, the attitude of how people perceive it and how we individually perceive it. We as women have this power. And by doing that, we also provide support for each other, wisdom, and an inspiration to engage in such a positive and constructive mindset. It will all make a powerful difference that not only will help each of us, but those around us and those who will arrive into the latter half of their life after us, undaunted and eager to do so because of the women who came before, who refused to be seen as less than or as incapable of achieving amazing things. Because, oh my goodness, we have so many amazing things to achieve, to savor, and to revel in, right? All right, so let's dive into this episode. And we're going to start with number one. Like I said, this is the one that I immediately started putting into place in my life. I started this last week. I'm in my second week now, and I'm just going at it. I'm loving it. I'm just loving it. Anyway, number one is interval sprint training, also going to be called SIT, S-I-T, the acronym SIT. So if you see that in the show notes, we're talking about sprint interval training. Now, when perimenopause begins, and this can begin for at a variety of different ages, but this is the 5 to 10 year period leading up to when menopause happens. And menopause is simply a full year of not having your period. A full year of not having your period. Once you have that full year of not having your period, then you're technically postmenopausal. So there's maybe one day that you're menopausal. It's perimenopausal and postmenopausal that is the predominant length of time. So with that said, if you're in the perimenopausal period, you may have noticed, like myself, that there's a bit of belly fat that accumulates seemingly out of nowhere. Oh, so frustrating. So this is, coming from someone who works out and has been eating the same way I have for decades, thoughtfully and with awareness, not perfectly. 80-20 here. I do enjoy my desserts. I enjoy my croissants. Come on now. But to say the least, this is frustrating. However, when we start going through perimenopause, our body composition starts to change. And the good news is we can combat it. And it begins with shifting our workout to include high-intensity interval sprint training sessions. So yeah, less is more. No long runs, folks. No. Unless you're training for a particular event, of course, you can absolutely do that. But I started to read through this book going, why was I running long? No, you don't have to do that. Sprint interval training. So here's a quote from the book by Dr. Stacy Sims. Quote, "The key here is intensity. In high-intensity interval training, alternating short bursts of hard exercise are followed by relatively short recovery periods." She goes on to share that the benefits of SIT, or sprint interval training, is, quote, "improvement in body composition." That's the number one improvement. That's the biggest improvement we will see when we engage in sprint training. Other benefits abound as well for our physical and mental arenas, improving cognition and working memory. So this will reduce that annoying brain fog that comes on. You know what I'm talking about. And reducing anxiety and depression. But quickly, I want to go back to why SIT improves our body composition. She shares, quote, "As you reach perimenopause, your body burns less fat at rest and instead stores more of it. SIT turns that around. This type of high-intensity workout demands carbohydrates and pulls a lot of glucose from your bloodstream. Your body responds by replenishing your muscle and liver glycogen or carbohydrate stores with carbohydrate and using more of your fat while you're at rest, because it knows that you're going to need those muscle stores to perform those intense exercise bouts again." End quote. So whereas if I went for a long run, yeah, my body is exhausted, but I haven't stressed it to the point of thinking that it needs to be stronger. So it's not using the reserves. Instead, it stores the reserves because it knows I'm going to need that energy to run longer. So it's backward thinking to think I should be running longer and farther. No, 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 no. So I mean, I just didn't have the science to understand why. Now I do. So within her book, Next Level, she details a handful of different examples of how you could do sprint interval training. It could be running, and most of them are running, but it could also be cycling. So you could be on a stationary bike or an actual bike. It's up to you. And there's different intensities as far as how many sets and for how long, and the rest period then adjusts to that. So the one that I'm doing is actually one she doesn't put in the book. It's in the interview with Mel Robbins. And I've been, like I said, doing it for a couple weeks now. And it's 30 seconds of sprinting, so about 200 meters, okay, followed by 90 seconds of recovery. And you do that 5 times. That's it. Ho ho, were my thighs burning, the tops of my thighs. But you have to give yourself a day of rest. So don't do it every day back to back. I do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Let your body rest. Do not, I mean, you really need your body to rest. I'm not talking about the recovery period in between. That's obvious. You just walk. Just walk. But give yourself days of absolute rest. Now, there are 2 other things you're going to want to do besides the sit training. You're going to want to, and that's what we're going to talk about number 2, lift heavier weights, but fewer reps. Again, quality over quantity. So number 1, really quickly, you need to include in your workout and get rid of those long runs if it's something you don't enjoy. If you still enjoy long runs, you can do an easy run 1 or 2 days a week. Absolutely. And she gives examples of different workouts that different women have applied to their lives after conferencing and working with her. And that was very helpful for me because there was one woman who had a lot of similarities to my own life and my age and everything. And I was like, oh, I'll take this. So I used a lot of what she did in her workout schedule to apply to mine. But that's what I love about this book. It provides applicable, specific examples. So the second thing you want to do is lift heavier weights, but fewer reps. So you won't get bulky and you will burn more fat while you're resting, but also while you're working out and lifting those weights. So here's a quote actually from the memory book. At the deepest level, physical activity of any sort promotes synaptic and cognitive resilience. So I share that quote with you from the Complete Guide to Memory because everything we're doing physically that we're going to talk about here is going to help your mind. I cannot tell you how beneficial it has been after the sprint training immediately. I mean, it's less stress. I'm clearer thinking. I'm more in the present moment. My body has been fatigued in a great way. Yeah, my moods have definitely started immediately improving. Not that they were horrible, but just I'm noticing a slight improvement in that. And the same thing with our muscle. As we strengthen our muscle, we're burning more fat, but we're also strengthening our bones and exercising our mind's cognition, as we just heard there from the quote. So a little bit about what we mean by lift heavier weights. And she talks about this in a couple of chapters. The wrong information has been shared for too long about how heavy our weights should be as women if we are trying to stay strong but svelte at the same time. Because our estrogen is declining as we start going through perimenopause and beyond, the lighter weights at more repetition, quote, won't really stimulate those satellite cells and replace the muscle and strength building stimulus that is lost as our estrogen wanes. It won't make you as strong as you could be. We're not talking about bulk here, which means that we need to, quote, lift heavy enough to send a message to our brain that we have serious work to do and that we need all the muscle fibers possible at our disposal, end quote. So all we're doing here is lifting as heavy as we possibly can, and you can build up to this, all right, for just 3 to 4 reps. This will do a handful of things. This increases your metabolic rate, so therefore you're burning more fat. It helps improve your posture and stability by strengthening your joints and tendons. It strengthens bones. It gives you better blood pressure control, which consequently helps reduce cardiovascular disease, which that risk goes up as we step into the menopausal years. It improves our immunity because over the long term, it reduces inflammation, and it maintains lean muscle and reduces fat gain, thus improving our body composition. So many benefits. And this is another thing too, that she gives a photo guide of the actual exercises to do. And some of them are, really you're lifting a significant weight, and others you're not. So not all of them are super extreme and exhausting in that regard, but it's posture and it's consistency, and there are not a lot of them. So the new approach with this lifting heavier weights is to simply do 2 to 3 times a week, 3 to 6 reps, as much weight as you can possibly do. And you can gradually work up to this. So maybe do the first 4 weeks she suggests at a lighter weight, but heavy for you. And then once you build up your endurance and strength for the next 2 to 4 weeks, do a little heavier. And then by 8 weeks total time, get to that heaviest weight that you can and do it just for 4 to 6 sets. So 3 to 6 reps, 4 to 6 sets. That's it. That's it. About 3 to 4 different exercises. You can do it right in your home. But again, if you've never done this before, you might want to seek out someone who's expert in their field. But keep what she said in mind. Okay, don't let them think you need to do lighter weights. No, 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 no. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, let's talk about food for a second. So eat fibrous fruits and vegetables and plenty of plants. So she talks a lot about the gut microbiome and that it needs diversity. And this supports research that has been found in a large-scale international study in 2021 by King's College in London that, quote, eating a diet rich in plant-based foods encourages the presence of gut microbes that are linked to a lower risk of heart disease and other common illnesses, end quote. So you want to aim for at least 25 grams of fiber from plants each day. So an example of this would look like 2 cups of raw broccoli, or 1 cup of cooked brown rice, or 1 cup of cooked lentils. Not only are there health benefits that support the good gut bacteria that are called Bacteroidetes versus the one you want less of, Firmicutes. These two make up 90% of your gut biome. And when you have the good type of gut bacteria, it helps to increase your metabolism and block inflammation. And there also are menopausal benefits because it reduces the symptoms of menopause and also decreases the risk of cancer. So the more fibrous vegetables and fruits, the better. Another type of food that you want to eat is food rich in polyphenols. And this establishes that healthy balance in your microbiome. These foods would be fruit, especially berries, nuts, seeds, vegetables, beans, dark chocolate, coffee, tea, and olive oil. Include them alongside legumes, grains, and fish for benefits to reduce inflammation and improve your gut. If you're looking at this list or hearing this list and thinking, oh, this looks a lot like the Mediterranean diet, you're exactly right. You're exactly correct. Stick to that and you'll be doing great things for your overall health, which is going to help you have a healthy gut biome or microbiome, which then ultimately is going to help reduce a lot of the symptoms, not all, but a lot of the symptoms of menopause. So eat fibrous fruits and vegetables and plenty of plants to create a diversity in your microbiome. Okay. Number 4, keep your bones strong with plyometric training. This is also just simply called jump training. Now, we know that women especially can be prone to osteoporosis as we age. So we need to pay attention to the strength of our bones. And knowing how to do this is key. And we can do it in our workout. So start now, whatever your age, start now by putting into place a jumping habit. And she shares a very specific and a very approachable routine. All of it takes just about 10 minutes. So just do 10 minutes, 2-3 times a week. There's 2 different workouts. One's simpler, one's a little more difficult, but not really. If you're an athlete or if you're active in any way, you're going to look at these and go, I got this. And you do. And you can do them right in your yard. You can do them in your house. And if you have an open plan living room, you could absolutely do them there. However, if you do have weak knees or joints, or you already have osteoporosis, please consult your doctor first. But this is definitely something to add to your workout regimen that's only going to take 10 more minutes. That's huge. Plyometric training, or also known as jump training. All right, number 5. The chapter is titled this right out of the gate, and it is simply stop dieting. Just stop. With regards to the term diet, we're talking about the American approach to diet, where you have restrictions and limitations and you're counting calories and you're doing all the no, 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 no. When our body doesn't receive what it needs, it begins to store and conserve. This is not what we want, because what it stores is fat and carbs, thinking it will burn them later. But we don't want that. We want to burn them now, today. However, when we go on a diet, that is exactly what we're doing. What we are doing is causing our body to do the exact opposite of what we want. In fact, Dr. Sims points out that most women are eating far fewer calories than they need for energy and recovery. The key instead is to eat well, which we just briefly talked about in number 3, and we'll talk more about in number 6. Dr. Sims is also opposed, especially for perimenopausal and beyond women, to intermittent fasting, which has become a huge thing, as we know. While, yes, studies have proven that this is beneficial to men, it has proven to have the opposite effect for perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal women, the exact opposite, especially women who are active. So again, there's that question. Who did you do the study on? That'll answer a lot of questions as to whether or not we should try something. So we do ourselves no favors and actually are contradicting our efforts when we fast. So stop dieting, stop fasting, eat well, and you're doing great. Okay, that's number 5. Number 6, fuel your body properly. So half of what you eat all day should be fruits and vegetables. So literally half. A quarter needs to come from protein, and the final quarter needs to be whole grains and make them fiber and nutrient dense, such as brown rice, black rice, quinoa, bean, or pulse based pasta. As well, when it comes to vegetables, and I was so tickled to hear this because this is what I eat by default. Almost every time I have a vegetable and I'm home, this is what I'm having. Cruciferous vegetables, a lot of them, as you are in perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal life. Broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower. Eat them regularly to regulate your hormones naturally. They will help reduce hot flashes and PMS symptoms and immensely help your gut microbiome because they have so much fiber. So back to number 3, we're talking about eat fibrous fruits and vegetables. And if you don't like these vegetables in their raw form or steamed form, because if you're a super taster, she talks about this. If you're a super taster and there's a bit of bitterness you can taste and you don't like them, then roast the vegetables. This will bring out the sweetness, the natural sweetness from these vegetables, and it will cut that bitterness. Now, me personally, I roast my vegetables. I love roasted broccoli. Many of you know this. If you watch my cooking show or I don't know, there's all different places I've talked about this. I always have broccoli in my fridge. Always, always, always. So if you have a vegetable that I just mentioned, those vegetables there on that list, and there's one of those that you just love, do not feel bad for eating the same thing all the time. It is good for you. Do it. Not only will eating a primarily plant-based diet help reduce menopausal symptoms and keep you physically healthy, it strengthens your memory as well. Berries, fermented foods, leafy greens support a healthy brain, which promotes the maintenance of a healthy memory, as Dr. Richard Restock shares in his book, The Complete Guide to Memory, The Science of Strengthening Your Mind. So everything is overlapping here. I love it. It makes it so much simpler. We just needed to know what it was we needed to do. But turns out there's many benefits for both mind and body. So number 6, fuel your body properly. Number 7, make water your go-to choice for pairing with food. But don't be absurd about it. Okay, she talks about this, so I'm just going to relay the message. I say absurd because you've likely seen those uber huge water jugs that people pack around with them all day, and it's even on some of the very popular television shows too. And Dr. Sims points out, quote, you are likely just peeing most of it out, end quote. So she encourages you to drink plain water with your meals, whatever food you're eating, drinking plain water. But she also goes on, because she's a physiologist who specializes in hydration, thermoregulation, and performance. She goes on in great detail about how exactly to hydrate properly and when we go overboard and it's unhelpful. So sometimes this could come in the way of drinking certain sports drinks because they're full of a lot of additives and sugar, and they can throw off our gut biome, or drinking literally just too much plain water. What we should be doing, she goes on to say, is actually when we're just drinking liquid. So we're just trying to hydrate. Quote, you want sodium and glucose in small amounts. I will share exactly how much in a second, in the water as well. And so she shares how sodium is the pilot for hydration, and it works best when it has a co-pilot, which is glucose. And she said, and the why is because sodium is absorbed into your cells by a few mechanisms, but mostly it hitches a ride with glucose. Without glucose, the constant flow of sodium and water into your bloodstream slows down, and this is why plain water isn't optimal for hydration. Water contains no drivers, and like a fluid that is too concentrated, it may just slosh around for a while before it gets where it needs to go. So it's not bad for you. You can overhydrate, she says, but it's not bad for you. It just won't do its job as effectively. So if you're just, everyday life, work, your routine, not working out and an extensive workout, when you drink water on its own, away from meals, quote, mix 1 teaspoon of maple syrup, which she talks about is one of the best sweeteners. If you're trying to sweeten something, maple syrup is actually the best sweetener to use, as opposed to anything that's processed and created, or even a little bit better than honey. So maple syrup. Anyway, I'm off track. So she says mix 1 teaspoon of maple syrup and 1/16 of a teaspoon of salt into about 10 ounces of water. This will give you 4 grams of carbs from sucrose and 150 milligrams of sodium. So this approximately 1% solution is perfect for eating and low intensity hydration. So she's a whole chapter on hydration and working out. You can look into that if you're curious. But for everyday life, that's what she recommends when you're not eating a meal. So if you're eating a meal, drink water, just plain water, because your food has that sodium and that glucose already in the food. You don't need to supplement it. But if you're drinking water on its own and you want it to be more easily absorbed for quicker hydration and more effective hydration, that's what you should do. That's number 7. Make water your go-to choice for pairing with food, though. Number 8, eat your breakfast before working out in the morning. First of all, do not fast. Do not skip breakfast. But if you're working out in the morning, like I know many people do, you do want some food, some good food in your system before you start working out. I'm someone who loves her breakfast, so she didn't have to convince me to do this. But I know a lot of people eat a very small or no breakfast at all, and that's just not going to be helpful. That's exactly the opposite result that you will get with regards to staying thin and being healthy, and having a clear mind. Quote, you do not want to go into your workouts underfed. Doing that creates more stress and undermines your exercise progress, end quote. So what you should have is protein with some carbs. And if it is a workout day, so you've done that before you go work out, we're going to talk about this in number 9. You want to make sure you do something within 30 minutes after your workout, to ensure that your body is doing what you want it to do for body composition, for good health, for hormonal balance as well. So eight is eat breakfast before you work out in the morning, and 9 is eat within 30 minutes after working out and make sure it's high in protein. So you want to avoid shakes, bars, and drinks because they are classified as highly processed foods, and we want to get rid of those. Instead, here's some very specific ideas, and she has a lot of these in the book, and I love it. Instead, reach for Greek yogurt with granola, or simply nuts, or chicken and vegetables, or whole grain toast with eggs, or cottage cheese, or simply a granola bar. Now, check the sugar on it. You want to have less sugar rather than more. Or you could have salmon with brown rice, or boiled eggs, or vegetables with quinoa, grilled chicken salad, whole wheat crackers with tuna, or avocados and eggs on toast. I don't know about you, but all those sound delicious. So if you're eating, so it depends on when you're working out, likely what you're going to have on hand. But this is the perfect reminder just to plan ahead. But these are so doable, so simple and so doable. But it's within the 30-minute window, she says, that's imperative. Don't delay. And she does explain why in the book. I'll let her do the explaining there, but she's adamant after your workout to make sure you eat one of those high protein meals or snacks within 30 minutes. That's number 9. Number 10, sleep well and deeply. Now we know good sleep is imperative. The question is, how do we do it? Right? So a lot of these things that we're already doing, exercise and good eating, are going to reduce hot flashes. All right. They're going to help regulate so much of what is frustrating at the moment, and that affects our sleep. So here are some things that will continue to reduce those symptoms. Move up your dinner time. Do not drink wine or caffeine before bed. And if you avoid alcohol altogether, it will reduce the number and severity of your hot flashes. Also, reduce or prevent stress with deep breathing practices, mindful meditation, and yoga. So these are things that we've talked about, a lot of these things many times with relationship just to good sleep. But when it comes to perimenopausal, postmenopausal, and menopausal, this is going to help reduce those hot flashes. And let you sleep through the night more soundly and more consistently and regularly. So number 10 is sleep well and deeply. Really consciously create a good night's sleep. Number 11, understand which foods actually strengthen your bones. Milk, not so much. Aha! That may shock some people. It may not shock others. But I think it's really important to understand that, yes, we do want strong bones, but drinking milk really isn't going to do what we need it to do. So here's an interesting study that proved that. During a 12-year nurses' health study that includes 77,000 registered nurses, they found that, quote, women who drank a lot of milk, 2 or more glasses a day, were no less likely to break a hip than their peers who drank it once a week, end quote. So while, yes, you need calcium, you also need vitamin K, vitamin D, magnesium, and vitamin K2. You can find these vitamins in leafy greens, such as lettuce and broccoli, and studies have found that you reduce your risk of hip fracture by 30%. So simply by amping up those vitamins from the diet you eat, from the food you eat, you can reduce hip fracture by 30%. You can find K2 vitamins in cheese, in egg yolks, and fermented foods. You can find magnesium in leafy greens, seeds, avocado, beans, fish, and nuts. And fatty fish like salmon have way more calcium than milk. Also, foods such as olive oil, soybeans, blueberries, and foods rich in omega-3s, such as salmon, have been shown by the National Osteoporosis Foundation to strengthen bones. So many other ways that we take care of our bones, and some ways that we've been doing that aren't giving us the benefit that we thought they were giving us. So just something to keep in mind. That's number 11. Understand which foods actually strengthen your bones. Okay. So I have 6 more ways to keep our mind and body healthy for the rest of our lives. I'm going to share those with you after I introduce you to this episode's sponsors. I'll be right back. This episode is sponsored by Cozy Earth. Transform your nights with Cozy Earth's luxuriously soft, temperature-regulating sleep essentials. Because when you sleep well, you live well. I've had the opportunity to sleep with Cozy Earth's bamboo pajamas, and I have had some wonderful nights of sleep. They offer a sleepwear upgrade you deserve. They're lightweight yet cozy. They're designed to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. And I can share confidently just this last night, and I've been regularly wearing these last couple weeks because it's spring. I like to leave my window open. It's still chilly. I fall asleep so swiftly. They are truly comfortable, and they breathe really well. They also make bamboo sheet sets that are soft as well as cool, and some of the most luxurious sheets you'll ever own. So why not invest in sleep that restores, refreshes, and revitalizes? And it's risk-free comfort. Not sure if you'll love any of their items? Take 100 nights to decide with their sleep trial. And every Cozy Earth bedding product comes with a 10-year warranty. So why not prioritize your sleep? Visit CozyEarth.com and use my exclusive promo code SIMPLE to receive 40% off their best-selling sheets, towels, pajamas, and more. And if you get a post-purchase survey, let them know that you heard about Cozy Earth right here on the Simple Sophisticate podcast. So visit cozyearth.com and use the promo code SIMPLE. Sleep better with Cozy Earth. The Simple Sophisticate is also sponsored by Hungry Root. Now, spring's upon us, and it is fun time, but it also can be fairly busy with so many activities and events happening for all sorts of lifestyles, family events and school events. And having the most delicious food always ready either to pack up and send on their way to school or to take with us to work. And it's not always simple to eat well and in season. But this is where Hungry Root comes in. It's like having your own personal shopper and nutritionalist all wrapped into one. They take care of the weekly grocery shopping, recommending healthy groceries and meals tailored to your taste, nutritional preferences, and health goals. They make it easy to eat high-quality, nutritious food and achieve any diet or health goals, from anti-inflammatory to gut-friendly, gluten-free, or dairy-free, high-protein, and more. Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free. Just tell them about your goals and preferences, and they'll fill your cart with personalized recommendations that get smarter as they learn more about what you like or don't love. Most of Hungry Roots recipes can be made in just 15 minutes or less, and with over 15,000 recipes shipped each week, there's something for every taste and nutritional preference. Hungry Root also has healthy groceries like smoothies, kid snacks, sweets, ready-to-eat meals, salad kits, and even supplements. And here's some awesome news. There's no high fructose corn syrup or artificial sweeteners or preservatives in any of Hungry Root's food. They only source top quality meat and seafood free of hormones and antibiotics. I had the opportunity to enjoy a week's worth of Hungry Roots offerings, and they do. They tailor exactly to you. I'm getting the snacks I want. So this is not just meals. This is snacks too. I can edit. So they suggest something. I can edit it and make it exactly what I want. From the nuts I prefer, I like almonds instead of walnuts, for example. The fruit or berries I prefer, I want blueberries instead of, blackberries maybe be the case. You can tailor this to you. Take advantage of the Simple Sophisticate's exclusive offer for Hungry Root. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/simple and use the code SIMPLE. That's hungryroot.com/simple, code SIMPLE, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. Again, that's hungryroot.com/simple, code SIMPLE. Welcome back. So let's dive right back into our list of how to have a healthy mind and body for life. Number 12, to our memory. How do we strengthen it? Well, one way is when we are trying to learn something new, the best way to do this is to repeat as immediately as possible. What do I mean by this? The key process of events underlying memory formation begin with learning something new. And so you learn it, take a short delay, so for example, a day, but no more than 2 days at most. This is detailed as to the why in the book. Then test it again, then relearn, then delay, and then retest. So when you repeatedly come back to that new information in a quick succession of time, you're more likely to retain it. The longer the delay, the ability to recall that new information decreases quite significantly, according to Dr. Richard Restack. And that significance, after 4 days, it can drop as much as 25% of the likelihood that you're going to be able to recall it. So, for example, I'm thinking of language learning. I know that just that constant repetition of sitting in the classroom every other day, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, for 3 years, the repetition of it, having to recall it, be tested on it, recall it, be tested on it. But I do have a slight delay there that day is part of what makes it more effective than either back to back to back to back or a long delay and then going back to it. So if you want to learn something new, just follow that procedural step, those procedural steps. That's number 12. Number 13, we're more likely to remember something if we tie it to multiple senses and multiple or different emotions. This will retain that memory because we have more associations with the event. So back in the 1950s, for example, and prior to that, rote memory was believed to be the best way to memorize something. But what studies have now shown is that when we link a new memory with another association, whether it's an emotion, whether it's another sense or multiple senses, the brain is using the associative memory, and it is, quote, much more adaptable and creative than rote memory. All right. So similarly, when we learn something alongside another similar event that corresponds with why it would be helpful to learn that new skill, we are using our associative memory. So when, again, a language skill, and when we are in the environment, say we're in France and we're using that language in the context of where and why we have to use it, we're more likely to retain that information of how to, place an order or ask for something or, have a conversation, whatever the phrasing, the verb tense is that we have to constantly recall. In the environment where it would more likely be used, we are more likely to retain it. So we hear that often, right? The best way to learn a language is to go live and immerse yourself in the culture, and that's why you're having multiple associations, and thus it stays in your memory bank longer. All right, so that's number 13. Tie your memories or what you're trying to learn to multiple senses or emotions. And this is also why, exciting, amazing, life events stay in our memories longer, right? A lot of different emotions are happening. It's a new experience, a lot of different senses. So if it's food or if there was noises or music or whatnot, it's also why traumatic events stick in our memories longer, because there's more senses and emotion tied to it. Our everyday life, we likely probably could not remember what we did a week ago if it was just the everyday routine. This is not necessarily a bad thing, but that's the reason why, because we are not engaging all of our senses or multiple senses and so on and so forth. So just understanding how memory works is very helpful, and he walks you through that in the book. And that's number 13. Number 14, we can strengthen our working memory, and this will improve our intelligence. Now, we have different types of memory. So we just talked about associative memory a second ago. We have a lot of different types of memory, procedural memory. Working memory is the most important when it comes to having a strong memory to deter dementia. The quote, working memory involves the active storage and manipulation of information, and it is your ability to keep in the attentional foreground a piece of information while you turn your attention to something else. So recall. How we improve the working memory is, quote, to take a short break before finishing to review your work. So maybe you're not entirely done with the project. You're going to have to come back to it today, later in the afternoon, or tomorrow. That's actually a good thing because it requires that you recall, and this further deepens the information into your long-term memory. You're going to have to recall what you had done yesterday to complete the task. If you finish it all in one go and just get it done, go through the motions, you're less likely to remember it. And this is what puts it into the long-term memory, that having to recall it multiple times. So keep retesting yourself. This, again, will strengthen the ability to recall that information. This frequent retrieval is even more effective in establishing a memory than relying on additional studying. So if you have to constantly recall, this is why, back to that example of immersing yourself in a culture, if you have to constantly recall how to ask that question, how to, read that particular sign to know what what it means, whatever, that constant recall is actually what's going to help it stay in the long-term memory. All right, so that's working recall being something that will actually enhance your intelligence. That's the most important type of memory, working memory. That's number 14. Number 15, incorporate regular reading of novels and utilization of recipes when you cook. Now, I love this. So this is telling us we must read and we must cook. We must get in the kitchen and cook. Now, I love this because I obviously love both of those things. And I have a feeling most of the listeners will at least love one of those things. But with regards to recipes, I'm not talking about recipes written down, although you can start there. I'm talking about recipes that you can recall from memory. Makes sense. We're talking about strengthening our memory. because when you have to recall it from memory, you're pulling it up from the past. So it's pulling from your long-term memory. So you're going to start with recipes in a book. You're going to start, but if you're constantly in the kitchen cooking, all right, do this for pleasure. Do this with simple recipes. It doesn't have to be a long, complex recipe. This is an exercise for your memory. And that's working memory. We're talking about working memory here. The same can be said for reading a novel or any piece of fiction where you have to recall the previous events to understand what's happening and to remember the plot. I especially love reading mysteries, and in reading them, you must remember what happened in the first couple of chapters if you have any hope of figuring out the culprit before it's revealed. Although I usually, if it's written really well, it's really difficult to get that, culprit figured out before they reveal it. But you can at least get pretty close and have your reasons for why, because you read closely. Close reading and annotating while you read has been proven to enhance memory as well. So anytime you use handwriting, and that's why I write all over my books. I can remember so much more about what I've just read, whether it's a fiction or nonfiction. Primarily, I'm annotating in nonfiction books, just as I did with these two books that we're talking about today. But that enhances memory as well, because it's recall, and then you look more deeply, recall, you look more deeply, whatnot. So that's 15. Incorporate regular reading of novels and utilization of recipes in cooking to strengthen your working memory. Number 16. Value the benefits of napping as well as nightly sleep, but especially after learning something new. So, in either one of these, whether it's napping or getting a good night's sleep, do so after you've learned something new. Now, quote, your ability to retrieve the necessary information will improve secondary to the enhanced consolidation and encoding taking place in your brain during the nap. End quote. Sleep, as we know, whether our nighttime routine or a nap, is beneficial for, quote, synaptic function, leading to strengthening of the synaptic connections related to important memories, end quote. When we sleep deeply, the new information we have learned is transferred, like it goes on a little journey in your brain while you're sleeping, from short-term to long-term memory. So if you have had a really challenging class where you had to learn a lot of new information, that night, get a very good night's sleep. It's vital to retain that information and to shift it from your short-term to your long-term memory. Yet another reason why sleep is so important. And so if you're saying, hey, I'm mentally fatigued because you've been busy, trying to learn all these new skills, honor that need. Go take a nap or turn in for bed earlier than you normally would. And your memory is going to benefit from that. So that's number 16. Last but not least, number 17 is give your full attention. Be present. This will enhance your memory. Quote, memory is a natural extension of attention. Just by attending to something, you increase your chances of remembering it, end quote. A fundamental principle of living a life of contentment is being wholly present in the moment, seeing, observing without judgment, and savoring. Even when things aren't going as we would like, when we are giving our full attention, we not only are better able to discover the truth that will help us make the best decision for our life moving forward, but we also strengthen our memory. It's a win-win, short-term and long-term benefits. So number 17 is just simply give your full attention, be present in the moment. This is going to strengthen your memory and your ability to learn something new and recall it properly, and going through all those steps we just talked about before, where you only have a short delay, no more than 2 days, and recall the memory and whatnot. But you have to pay attention in class to learn the skill, if we're going to use the analogy of learning a skill in a classroom. But again, that's how you strengthen your memory. All these little things that seem very simple and obvious have huge benefits on having the strong skill of memory, which back to his reminder that if he's never seen anyone who has a strong working memory that also has the effects of dementia or mental decline. So keeping all of that in mind, I'm so reassured, motivated, reminded that so much of what we have talked about today are approaches and techniques that we have discussed here on the show and on the Simply Luxurious Life blog, and in the books for the past 15 years. And with the additional science support guiding us as to why quality over quantity is an approach that works best when it comes to fitness, for example, or why continuing to be curious and reading voraciously is not only a good pastime to enjoy, but good for our minds as well. We can be encouraged that living well can feel good in the moment and be enjoyable every single day. It's not a luxury to do these things that bring us enjoyment, but in fact, really good for our health and well-being as well. So as I went about readjusting my own fitness and eating regimen after reading Next Level by Dr. Stacy Sims, I realized how much I was already doing in my own life that aligns with what I now know to be beneficial. I realized that the strength training isn't difficult and can be done in my home with the home weights that I already have. I discovered the sprinting can be done right in my neighborhood along the street in front of my house. Some of my neighbors have seen me doing it and they give me great big waves. Nellie watches me as I go. She sits on the porch watching me. And I can continue to enjoy the food I love, such as avocados. It can be a regular treat spread on top of a favorite whole grain piece of toast from a bakery that I love. It's not an extravagance. It's not breaking any rules. It's actually something I need for my good health within that 30-minute window after working out. Knowing that living well doesn't have to be blisteringly difficult, but simply applied thoughtfully with confidence that it will be worth it removes the doubt and the stress of doing too much that was never necessary in the first place. I think that for me is a big aha. Because, again, quality over quantity for an elevated life experience in our everydays. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm pumped up and I'm excited. I mean, I have to tell you, when I was going to start doing the interval sprint training, this was 2 weeks ago just before I did my first go round, I was so excited. I was like, oh, I can't wait to wake up and get going and do this. I mean, granted, I was a sprinter in track, so I mean, I felt really comfortable doing it. But that's the whole point is when any of these things speak to you, it might seem too good to be true, but let that energy and trust now in the science that we've just talked about reassure you that, this can be part of your daily life. It can be good for you and you can enjoy doing it. It might be challenging for a moment. I'm not saying this is easy, but it doesn't have to be long and drawn out so that you dread doing it. I feel like in many ways that I have finally found the keys to this metaphorical, magnificent dream home that I knew existed, but I couldn't figure out where to look for those darn keys. So much of what these changes remind us is that with intention and patience, we are investing in our good health for the long term, while also being able to see, because we're not experiencing them as much, the reduction or elimination of symptoms brought on by our body's natural changing as women. I will be sharing my experience of my own new fitness approach as I've shared here, but I'll share with you glimpses every now and then during the couple moments with top tier members, as well as during the ponderings posts. I won't do it every time, but if there's something I discover I want to share, I'm really excited, or just anything that I think will be helpful, I'll be sure to share it during those instances. Partly to share with you how it's going, but also just let you know that you're not alone. If you are going to be implementing some of these changes, which I encourage you to do as you're inspired to do so, that, they're gradual. The benefits will be seen and felt gradually, but in the long term, it's going to be this long-lasting maintenance of good health and enjoyment, much more enjoyment of everyday life. So it's time to get excited and savor even more fully the life we are living as women. We have been given so much, and now finally, experts are studying women going through menopause, not men, to share with us what is actually going on inside our bodies and how we can best take care of and keep our bodies and minds strong. And I'm just so thrilled to be here to soak up that knowledge and apply it to living my best life and share it with you so that you can do the same thing. Thank you for listening to this episode. I'm excited to hear from you as you go along on this journey. And you can find all this information, links to the book, that podcast episode I mentioned on the show notes, the simplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 402. And we're not done. I'll be back with this episode's petit plaisir. This episode's Petit Plaisir is one for Anglophiles and lovers of cozy mysteries. But lovers of cozy mysteries who, I don't know, appreciate puzzles, which sounds redundant because we're talking about a mystery, but it's an exercise of the mind because there's always two mysteries going on in this limited series. I hope there's a new season. This is a brand new show, so it might be renewed, and I hope it is. But I'm talking about Ludwig, or should I say Ludwig. It is a series that is now on BritBox. It was in the UK last year. I know some of you who live in Britain have watched it, and I know some of you recommended it and loved it. But Ludwig stars David Mitchell as John Taylor, who is a twin in the series. His twin brother, is called James Taylor. And of course, it's the same actor playing them. But the wife of James is Anna Maxwell Martin, or played by Anna Maxwell Martin, who you may remember from a lot of different series and films. I remember her from the Bletchley Circle. Brilliant, very strong character, smart, and just gung-ho gumption, just a character, a role I've always enjoyed. And she's playing the similar role in this series. There are 6 episodes, and the final episode is this Thursday on BritBox. It's been airing every Thursday for 6 weeks. And the mystery is right now, the primary mystery is James, the twin brother, has disappeared. And his wife, played by Anna Maxwell Martin, has asked the twin brother, John Taylor, to come help find out where he is. Now, his brother, James, is a police officer in Cambridge. And so John pretends to be his brother and becomes the pseudo detective. And so within the main mystery of where is James, each episode is its own cozy mystery where they solve someone's death. So you have 2 mysteries going on at all times, which I love. Now, the puzzle part of this is that John Taylor has a pseudonym called Ludwig, or Ludwig, like Ludwig von Beethoven. And he is a puzzle creator. He's known throughout the country as being Ludwig, although no one knows he is Ludwig. And he lives a quiet life, solitary life on his own. And so there's a bit of comedy to it, especially in the first episode as he gets adjusted to life as this police officer driving a car, for example. Those are some comedic moments. And there's just a lot of great, likable, supporting cast members as well in this series. So if you're looking for a good, cozy mystery that involves a very intellectual approach, but also at the same time lighthearted approach. It's not dark, but it's not cheesy either. I encourage you to watch Ludwig. And again, crossing my fingers that they have a season 2 in the works. And I'll leave the trailer on the show notes so you can take a look or listen to it. Each episode is about 50 minutes. And you know what I'll be doing tomorrow night. I'll be watching the season finale of the first season to see how it all resolves and where is James. So anyway, that's Ludwig on BritBox. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petit Plaisir, where each episode ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each episode where I'll recommend a book, a film, a show, a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. All right, I'm going to wrap up because this was a long episode, but I hope you found it valuable and applicable to enjoying and savoring your life. You can find the show notes and everything we talked about on the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast 402. And the next episode will be in May. Oh my goodness, we're already going to May, Wednesday, May 7th. Thank you so much for joining me today, and wishing you a wonderful rest of April and start to May. Until then, I'll see you on the blog. Bonne journée. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog, The Simply Luxurious Life, with the shortened URL tsll.co or thesimplyluxuriouslife.com. For more in-depth exploration of how to cultivate your own unique, simply luxurious life, pick up my new book, which became both a bestseller and #1 new release in France Travel, The Road to Le Papillon, Daily Meditations on True Contentment. Available in all 4 formats for your preferred reading or listening. My first book, titled Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, and my second book, Living the Simply Luxurious Life, are also available in each of the 4 formats. Readers can now join the more intimate The Simply Luxurious Life international community by becoming members of the blog, which offers the benefits of ad-free reading site-wide, unlimited access and exclusive access to content on the blog, such as the monthly A Couple Moments with Shannon video chat, tours of my home Le Papillon, the monthly What Made Me Smile post, and monthly Ponderings post, as well as the exclusive opportunity to enter all of the giveaways during the annual French and British weeks. To stay caught up on all things Simply Luxurious, the podcast, blog post, the cooking show, and receive exclusive news, as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart each new month, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Lives free monthly newsletter, arriving on the last day of each month in your inbox. There is also a weekly newsletter, which is also free, and arrives each Friday to keep you caught up on the recent weekly posts on the blog. Enjoy with a hot cuppa or cup of morning coffee, and stay in the know about all things simply luxurious. Look for 2 new episodes of this podcast on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of each month. And until next time, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Thank you for tuning in. Bonne journée.